Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you on tour. Them no want you get more, so get more. Show them you not afraid them. Go and load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it King Kong. Every song I write, hit song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see. What a colossal. Working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on this right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the hater them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Never wanna see you fly. Never want you touch the sky. Never. Reach nowhere, so you have to find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, so you have to find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you on tour. Them no want you get more, so get more. Show them you not afraid them. Go and load them. Every human have a something that them destined. So be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way. Them no one can see you fly.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Let's see what the date be also. Information be in a certain space and time. Yes, April 27th, 2026. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is well. Ain't gonna be doing too much of yapping tonight. Don't get your whole hour last week and this week. I tell you, we got content. Oh, we got content. Listen to Mervin's interview. Listen to the town hall for NRP. Listen to the premier press conference both today. And the one we're gonna be doing is for last month, but I'm gonna get you up to date with today. Yeah, let me make sure that people can hear me, you see? Yeah, good night, everybody, once again. Hope everybody good. As I tell you, I'm gonna get you up to date with what happened today at the press conference. Although I listen various things, and we're gonna get into various things tonight. Headline from today: It seems like Destiny is gonna be defeated. I don't know who necessarily is gonna benefit from that. How the way it was portrayed today in the press conference is that there are a lot of people who are gonna end up supporting the conservative citizens movement because they really want this to go forward. But I heard mostly a tone of defeat with regards to Destiny today. Seem like some timelines have elapsed, etc. Renegotiations are happening. They, generally, overall, as I say, headlines, when you put uncertainty into big negotiations, never a good thing. And so, seem like I might be right because at the beginning of the year, I told y'all not to, that Destiny was not going to happen, only to be challenged by the premier. I say he had sent the document and I said, but beyond that, I ain't gonna tell you I listen much of the press conference. Uh, in the world at large, we know. I think that everybody understand we're living in a dangerous time. I ain't concerned how you feel about Donald Trump, but these images that we're seeing, the consistency of the political violence, even to some extent the ease at which this is happening, this is not cool. And we're living in a very violent time, and I don't know what to tell you except just be aware of your circumstances. Hopefully, things could get better soon and we could trend in a different direction. But the images that we're seeing currently taking place, they do have an effect. And I think I heard somebody say this is what, three times in the last, basically since last year. This is this is unacceptable. We need to get something going to resolve the situation. Hey, stop doing that. You understand? Hey, okay, good. Beyond that, as I say, got some content. Mervin was speaking to Peter Wickham. There was the town hall, various things going on in the country. Seem like election is coming. There was sports on the weekend. I don't even ask for a report on the sports, but he got Mr. Smitten, big up Trev for putting on a tournament. Think it's a tape ball tournament. It look like to me up in the hard time region, and I see a lot of people going out to it, supporting it. I love when different parts of Nevis can have events because that's how it used to be. I don't play cricket all, even fountain and all. Cause fountain would have like some kind of fun there. So those things are very important. Seemingly small contributions, but the one does build up into something. Anyway, this evening, and you see, I don't know, my face not up there, but anyway, this evening we're gonna be starting off with the NRP Townhall. And the questions, as you're gonna see, will be asked by my wife. And these are questions where she tell me, send your question them. So essentially these were my questions. And we're gonna see how we're gonna hear the questions and we're gonna listen and hear my critique of how the NRP engage. And I could also tell me if the questions were valid in your opinion. Anyway, let's cut to the business. Okay, I just paused it there, just a breakdown. So the first one is you say, well, sorry then. You say you want to repeal. How are you gonna do this? Because repealing is a political mechanism. So this is seeking a political solution, which I think is the best thing to do. And so I would like to know how are they gonna do that? Alternatively, the second question is, what you got for me? Tell me what is your plans over in the South Coast and in Nevis in general, which is gonna provide opportunities for the future development of Nevis. So the last question, I wanna know, you know me, I always ask again how is St. George. I went to school up there, spend a lot of time out there. It's important, man. What's going on with St. George's? Um, we stand up on a rocky road, man, because the question there is really a question for Janice. So I guess we gotta take the answer with a grain of salt, but we're gonna hear what Pat got to say. No, here is my first part of that. There. Listen, while to some extent, I will say that is true. I get it. And the other side of that, for the most part, I think everybody is clear who is gonna be running in the elections for the concerned citizens movement. I think that there's gonna be the three people in cabinet right now, joined by the two special advisors. And the hope is that everybody win and cabinet expand by that margin of victory. That's it. Simple game. On the other side, I am still trying to decipher the NRP strategy as far as this. If we are going to follow Pat and say that this is a grand strategy, right? In my estimation, according to grand strategy, you want this person to be out and exposed for as long as possible in order to build an open coalition and have an opportunity, unless this is somebody mean, uh, who like it is beyond dispute is known to Gingerland people. And even in those circumstances, I cannot see the strategic aspect of holding back the candidate, especially when you look historically at what you got to do from a NRP perspective running in Gingerland. If I was running in Gingerland, I would have wanted known I running in Gingerland as soon as possible. But that's just me. Okay. The first part of this I got to deal with. Now remember we're seeking a political end to this. What I will say about what she has chosen to do. I guess this is from a strictly you don't have any seats perspective, as far as if you don't have any seats, legislatively you don't have a voice. So it's not like NRP could send anybody to parliament. So I would assume that the reason why, the reason, uh, the strategy here is that the only thing you could do is to stir the people enough, to agitate them enough. You're not here, what? When you're saying I hear it, you could hear me right now? And also, if you could hear me right now, everything paused. But what you mean? Like when I playing it, you ain't hearing it clearly? Give me some feedback. Let me see if I could come. Ginger. Ginger, you need to relax. Okay. Ginger. Okay. Okay, you hear me, but you not hear the audio. Ginger? Ginger, as soon as I fix the audio, I'm gonna do the video again, huh? Okay, yo, what's up? Okay. And I feel like I understand what the problem, you know. Ginger, you stressed
No
out.
one you reach nowhere, reach no.
No, man, I need a casual right now. But I want to believe. So tell me if look, damn, I did not hear you when you were playing the audio from the shared screen. Okay, so let me see if me go.
Ning. Hi, Pops. I have two questions for Dr.
Okay, so let me know if you're hearing the questions at this time now.
Bartlett. Dr. Bartlett stated that the SSC should be repealed, which is a federal matter. How would NRP go about materializing such an outcome? Alternatively, what vision does NRP have for the South Coast and Nevis in general that will bring development for the betterment of the people? And my third question, with election coming, all three seats are important. Why no official representative for the St. George's yet have been announced?
Okay, you know, I apologize. Thank you for communicating. So now you heard the question. It's a good thing in between the question I was describing how was taking place, but now at least I know everything good and everything is supposed to be straight moving forward. So now we're gonna hear how Pat deals with the questions. She will answer the third question for us, and the third question has to do with why haven't we heard who is the candidate in St. George's as of yet?
Well, let me answer the last question first, even though it's not necessarily in my place because I'm not the party leader. But as it relates to St. George's, I don't know of any political party that has come out and announced their candidates up to this point. In politics, I think you have to be guided by strategy. You don't want to come out too soon. And so we are timing it. It would be a timely event. People are anticipating that, and some people are getting anxious over it. But we're working on it, and we would have a candidate in place to be formally launched at the opportune time.
Now, I also want to point out, if for that to make any kind of sense, how come Rohan is already attached to St. Thomas's so fast? What going on? Since we're waiting on strategy, how come he had no strategy with that part there? No. The realistic situation is this. You got to get 3 out of 5 seats in a Nevis. You got to win 60% of the seats. If you are not competitive in one seat, then that comes down to you need to win 75% now. So if that's your margin, that's your margin. But that's the circumstance that we could operate under until we see something we're going on up there. And maybe listen, even if you want to make the argument that the concerned citizens movement has the same problem with St. Thomas's, that might be kind of complicated. I haven't heard as yet what's gonna be happening with Cleone as far as her running. I don't think she will run, but certainly at the very least, I think that she will put out a bigger effort to get Lataya in government. But anyway, let me give a podcast.
As it relates to the repeal of the SSZ, that is really a federal matter. We are thinking that if the population at large could bring to bear enough pressure on the government, then they would be minded to repeal it. However, we have too many people who are silent. We are here, the shoes squeezing our feet, and we would not bawl out. And it's
hear my next position on this, right? Rather than say it's a federal issue, and then criticize the people and say, you need to make more noise, your shoes are squeeze, you. Isn't that the reason why you need the people and them to vote for you? So that you could get into some type of mechanism? No, I feel like one of the reasons why that is not happening is that NRP does not see any type of path towards any type of coalition, and therefore towards actually being in government. At least that's my supposition.
It's about time that our people became energized. Now that you have been exposed to all of what we have been saying, the things that are not good for the destiny. We have never said that everything was bad. But for the most part, at the end of the day, it does not seem to put Nevis people in the best position. If we were to establish a SSZ that includes Destiny or any other entity using the current SSZ legislation. So what we are saying is too much power in the hands of the Prime Minister. What we are saying is that there's a lot wrong with what the proposal is now because it disadvantages the people of Nevis. And if it were to be applied...
When you listen to anybody speak in life, it is important to understand the subject matter. Let me even compound screen to the part. Yes, or so. Ginger, you need to relax. Let me compound screen or tell her this. It is important to listen to the subject matter. Just now you listen to Pat, and you hear what Pat tell you. Pat tell you what we are saying. What we are saying. What? Pat is very good at telling us what to know. And a lot of politicians, is not she alone, very good at telling us what. But have y'all heard a convincing why yet? Because you hear the what, and then you hear the generalization. We cannot do it under this legislation. I think that at that very point in time, that is so timely and so easy to deal with. You're supposed to, at this particular moment in time, Pat's supposed to be so studied and so trained, at least in this one specific area, that she could say, for example, under this, where we feel like our sovereignty is being infringed, and whatever things that are of concern. But when you're saying what, and you're not saying how, and then you're not saying why, then you can ultimately see solutions that are gonna be, in my estimation, the most effective, and ultimately the reason why you're running in politics. You're running for a reason. Anyway.
Johnson kids, it would ultimately affect them as well. So we have sounded the alarm over here, and I'm grateful and I'm really appreciative of the support that we seem to be getting on the other side. But the thing is, this thing is not going to be stopped by just NRP. And we think we have been raising it enough now for people to recognize that this is not a political matter. This is something that transcends politics. So everyone has a stake.
Okay. This is where I gonna forever. I'm forever gonna disagree with your politicians. Anytime you get up and you tell me that this is not about politics. Everything is about politics, because politics is about the affairs of the people. And you better believe this concerns the affairs of the people. And if you feel like is important enough that you need to bring it out and you need to defend it, you need to articulate why there are dangers in this thing, then nothing wrong with saying so. And ultimately, the solution that you're seeking is a political solution, because it's politics, is a political mechanism brought us the SSD economy. And the political mechanism is going in Parliament and passing a bill and voting on it. So if you want to repeal that, it's a political mechanism you're going to to pull or repeal that. That's why you call repeal, you know? You could pass and you could repeal. All of them are laid out how to do them, all these things. So you cannot run from politics at any moment in time. No. There is this thing that is called partisanship, which is when you just back whoever is in your party, no matter how reprehensible they might be, no matter how awful they might be, no matter how chaotic they might be. And when it comes to partisan politics, this is a very dangerous thing. This goes against having checks and balances. So you could have a leader that you admire greatly, or even one that you ain't really support. But what you must consider with any of these leaders or any of these politicians is, what is the plan that they are laying forth for you? In certain circumstances, because some of them have served, we also have the fact that they have a track record, and you could say, well, when I vote on this one here, this is what I'm gonna get. And you could see over time, and this is why government does tend to change. So that's my perspective, that you can't get away from politics. It's just that you have to articulate it and say, this is not about, for example, what I would say, this is not about party politics. You could have disagreements in other areas, but there are certain things which I'm trying to find, which are, what are the common bonds? What are the things that we could all get together and say, we need this? One of them is security. But anyway,
Taking it. And everyone ought to recognize that it is their responsibility going forward to preserve our lands for our generations to come. Divisions ought not to be wiped off the map, and that is what is likely to happen. And so we want to make sure that we mobilize people. We are sensitizing you, we're giving you the information. It's up to us to get up.
When you say somebody gonna get wiped off the map, for example, that's what I mean. You got to explain to me like how this thing are gonna occur, you know? Cause if them people start to fight me, it's gonna be a problem. Got it? Anyway.
Politicians are too quiet, we're too relaxed, we're too comfortable. And the thing is, we want just the political party to go out there and fight. Of course we are going to fight, because that is what we said that we were going to do for you. But you have a part to play.
Okay, hear me final position on that, right? Whether it is NRP or the CCM who is pushing destiny, I think both sides have a responsibility to come to the people and to present their case and their vision. After they don't do that, then it's up to the people to make up their mind as to which one they're going with. The second part of this, and of note, is that Pat is not offering an alternative. Of note, Pat is not the one who is gonna offer the alternative. Here we are gonna have the mic turned over to Dr. Daly.
Okay, we'll give you another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll go back to the party leader to do a wrap on the proceedings this evening. So we still wait your questions.
While we await the question, just a reminder that if you were to examine the 2017 manifesto from NRP, you will see in detail the provision for a coastal road running from Long Point all the way to Butlers. And that road would have opened up all of that area, the southeast of Nevis, lands owned principally by Nevisians, lands that could be used for development based on our terms, whether it's for affordable homes, upscale homes, industrial parks, recreational parks, agriculture, whatever. That opportunity.
I needed to cut it already upon the whatever. Listen. First of all, if you are gonna answer my question in 2026 about your alternative, you can't give me homework, don't know. The homework can be, well, if you go and you look at the 2017 manifesto, you know how hard it be me get hand pan copy of them kind of thing there right now, pana. So first of all, and that's me who looking for this type of information, looking for manifestos and them type of thing there, who think that we need archives of these information for historical posterity. You cannot expect to send the average citizen to go look for a 2017 manifesto. No. Having said that, you're going to lay out your plan. What needed to happen between 2017 and 2026 is two things. First of all, you got to make an assessment. Did you lose because the people had thought that was a stupid idea and nobody could have seen it? In which case, that maybe that would be the reason why you had put it down. But alternatively, see, maybe it come back wrong, and maybe you were ahead of the game in your proposal, and what you needed to do between 2017 and 2026 is to continue to refine the idea. And instead of describing it and saying, well, it could have been this or that, and whatever to articulate now a grand vision, a grand strategy, a grand scheme to integrate over on the South Coast into Nevis and to provide opportunities. So that's my take upon the part.
Community will have empowered Nevisians rather than empowering millionaires and billionaires who don't need any more empowering. Those lands belong to Nevisians. Nevisians ought to be the ones deriving the maximum benefit from those lands. Not Johnson, not Ver, not anybody of that ilk. Nevisians, we, as a small boy, you saw how Stony Grove was, you saw how Ramsbury was, free range. Look at it now. You saw
like when you hear daily, this is how come I feel like for the most part, Nevis is like just conservative politicians. And somewhere blue and somewhere green, but for the most part. And this is where even sometimes in certain perspectives you could say that the concerned citizens movement is more on the left, I think, because they're not concerned. When he's describing and saying people of that ilk can't make no money, I shouldn't be, well, basically that's what he's saying, shouldn't be making no money. Like, he has to understand how this is coming off to the community. And alternatively, if this is going to be your position, this is one of them situations where you can't just say what would have happened, but in order to be more convincing, and this is why I stress you need to say why and how things are going to happen. You can't just necessarily tell somebody, by things don't come up for you. You tell them what happened, man, things don't go good for you. You're going to get through. But when you are able to tell them how and why and show them really the light at the end of the tunnel, I feel like that's how when you could be more convincing than what I'm currently hearing at this moment.
how Marion Heights, Prospect, Cherry Gardens, Nevisians did those. We didn't take any foreign direct investment for those. We did them our own terms and our own way. And we are saying, allow us to put the road in. The Premier said it's too expensive. $20 million, $40 million is too expensive. What is the price of our future? I think Nevisians deserve an opportunity. Nevisians deserve respect. We didn't go to summer school. We went regular school. So we can't be fooled so easily. Give us the opportunity to empower our people through their lands, rather than taking it from them for somebody else to be empowered.
Renters, man. Okay, the last piece here is JD's gonna pick up on the last bit of this. She's gonna pick up what Dr. Daly is putting down, you know.
And I thank Dr. Daly for remembering my third question.
So if I may, I just want to say to persons who may be my age or younger, I know that all you know, the person is younger than me because I was around when NRP was in government, but all you know is a CCM-led Nevis Island administration. And so your measure of development for Nevis perhaps is based on that, because of your adult life, you've seen CCM in government. In high school, your school life, you saw CCM in government. And so I understand that there are persons, young persons in particular, who may be reluctant, who are not willing to think that there's possibility for us to think beyond or go beyond this current level of development or lack of development. But what we are saying is, even if that is all that you know, even if that is all that you can relate to, a matter such as this, we have the potential to lose hundreds of acres of our lands, should be enough to make you concerned, should be enough to make you say, listen, this is all I know, but I am willing to learn something else. I'm willing to see something else, because this is not it. This is not working, and I don't see how this can redound to my benefit. And so I found it necessary to mention that, because Dr. Daly spoke about the plans from a previous manifesto regarding the development of that area. And so I just want to put that in the mind, or leave that in the minds of our young people who only know.
Okay, I feel like we had enough of that. And if anybody could articulate for me what it is that JD was saying just now, I'm ready to hear you. But I feel like JD got a communications problem, which is ironic. That she would have a communications problem. I don't know what that was about. The most I could tell you that it is continuing the trend of it is continuing the trend of basically saying what, and not necessarily articulating why certain things need to change, how they will change, and for the most part, providing an alternative ideology, vision, perspective, because even she's attempting to point it out there and trying to say, you do not know what life has been like under any other form of government, without necessarily articulating what that would be. And that's where I think that the thing is short. But we shall see. I'm now moving on. I'm now moving on to the goat, of course, and we're gonna hear the premier perspective, as I said, from last month press conference on cannabis. So we're gonna dip into the cannabis debate. Quick yes or so no.
Monsieur Let, I have been very concerned about what I'm seeing unfolding in the Federation of our people being criminalized for marijuana, and the police continuing in their efforts to arrest, charge, and prosecute people for marijuana. Now, why do I say that I'm...
Hold on. Because, boy, listen, the video here is 10 minutes. I really need to explain to you the premiere in another 10 minutes, okay? So the first thing what we want to take note of is that the premier is concerned that people are being criminalized and arrested for the possession of cannabis. Okay, that's what we start off. So good. A video so far. You got me. You got me vote so far.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned because I observe a disconnect between what the governments have been saying, the broad and bold pronouncements in the parliament, the broad and bold pronouncements in speeches made by the prime minister, made by the premier, made by others.
Wait, whoop. Are you hear that? Eh? The man just talk about himself in third person. You know? He said the comments made by the premier. He not say made by me, you know? Comments that have been made by the premier, like is he having an outer body experience, and somebody make him out say by you good now, you're legit. And I could remember every single time bank ever asked me if you're legit, I said nope. Nope. Not as far as what me see yet. My mind has not changed.
We have mainstreamed this language of a cannabis industry. We have talked about it providing a much needed diversification to our current economy. I myself, Ms. Hewlett, have gone on record to say that cannabis is one string to our bow that we can use to diversify our economy away from our heavy dependence in Nevis on tourism and in St. Kitts on citizenship by investment. I was in Grenada recently delivering a speech there at the inaugural Congress of a new party formed there. And Grenada is grappling with the same issues. That whilst they entered the citizenship by investment program and industry much later than St. Kitts and Nevis, they too had become very dependent on it. I think the statistics show that somewhere in the region of 25 to 30% of their budget was coming from CBI. In St. Kitts and Nevis, that number was upwards of 60%. In fact, I believe it was 2 years ago that citizenship by investment accounted for 55% of the revenue. It is no secret and should be no secret to any of us that that has stopped. There has been a significant fall off in CBI inflows. And there have been people like me who from this rostrum, from the Nevis Island Assembly that I'm privileged to be a member of, from the National Parliament that I'm privileged to be a member of, agitating and advocating that we must move with speed to diversify our economy. In Nevis, we are doing it. That is why I can report on the film industry. We can talk about the online gaming industry that we've just...
We're gonna hear about some of the wonderful things that my goat has been doing, right? But before that, if the goat is supportive of this industry and think that that we have a shot to do this, I do not understand. And as I said, we're gonna hear about some of the alternatives that have been pursued, but we are not gonna hear about the cannabis industry, which he himself has proclaimed would be a bow that could save us from the vagaries, from the variances of CBI inflows and give us an alternative market and an alternative space to get some money. So I don't know why the NIA hasn't been more active on that front, him being so enthusiastic about the whole situation. This is a contradiction. And this is one of them situations where listen to what be me say, but watch what be me do too. And by the way, in as he continued and he spoke about the fact that he is concerned about the fact that different ministers and people in authority are portraying the situation as though everything is good when that is not the case on the ground. I want you to always remember every time Banky and them ask me, Along we legit. I said no. No. And this was in the face of the premier and other people in authority saying, speaking just as the premier saying no, and talking about how this thing gonna be so wonderful. And I said, nope, not yet.
Started in Nevis. We are currently building at Prospect a broiler facility to ensure that we can move the island to more self-sufficiency in chicken. We're investing in our young farmers and shade houses. Nevis has been trying its very best to diversify, come up with new ideas and creative ideas. And we have said that cannabis is one such industry. The federal government, for its part, has been talking about cannabis and a cannabis industry since it almost seems now when Noah built the ark. We've been talking about it for a very long time. When the Team Unity government was there, a government that I was a part of, we talked about it. Not much happened. Since this new government led by Dr. Terrence Drew is there,
Once again, and even now, right now, I only breaking down for you so you could understand what he trying to communicate on a broader level, you know. But overall, you hear he saying so. We do a lot of talking and nothing happen. I ain't listening to the bunch of talking. You got certain things when they happen, I'm gonna tell you, yeah, we're a go. We officially a go. Until such time. Talking. Speeches.
they're talking about it. They said they've set up the necessary commission. They've appointed a CEO. So how on earth can you justify saying on the one hand that you're developing an industry, on the one hand that you're putting the infrastructure in place, the framework in place, you have a cannabis commission, you have a CEO, you're moving in that direction, but the police are still raiding and locking up, prosecuting and charging these individuals.
Since the premier is unaware of why this is going on, when you set up a regime and there is no office that you could point us to, y'all keep on pointing us to committees and boards and all them kind of thing there. And if you say it's a license we need, then where is the place where we could go? Where is the digital portal we could log on to acquire said license? None of this has been set up. Hence why I said, a choppiness are you a do? Are you talking to people? I know that people are paying the consequence as a result of are you talking? And boy, let me tell you something. In America, this couldn't happen, man. Cause you hear him taking responsibility, basically saying, boy, people follow what he be me saying, and people get locked up. You know what that would have been?
So one young man reached out, he said he was charged $18,000. That was the fine in the court. Another one was fined $10,000. And so I don't hold any brief for any particular individual who was arrested. I am one who feels very strongly that the law is the law, and the law must be respected.
And here is where the contradiction begins. First of all, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with people being arrested for cannabis. And then here, you know, the law is the law. Respect the law. Well, going back to what I said, where is the license them? We part them there.
And I am not here to bash the police. The police are doing their job. The question that I'm asking publicly is, why is there this hypocrisy, this duality in relation to cannabis? The country needs to make up its mind. We either want a cannabis industry and therefore going to encourage these youngsters to get involved, or we don't want it. But we cannot be saying to our people that we want to develop this industry. We are putting all of this in place. And when our people respond to that, in one case that I'm aware of, this young man told me he went to TikTok and YouTube to educate himself, to find out how it is this thing goes, to find out about strains and potency, CBD and THC, I think it's called. He's educating himself. Why? He wants to get himself ready for this industry. And the other day, that young man was raided by the police. Had his picture in the paper. Criminalized. All before the courts. Question is, how? We're trying to hold fire and water in the same hand. And I'm calling on the federal government because they're the ones who are setting this.
Okay. So just to explain to everybody how the police force and the powers of the premier work with regards to the police force. Premier is able to give the police force general directions, and those directions cannot be inconsistent with the prime minister. So he could even enhance, in my estimation, the general direction. So said the prime minister said that one of the things that needs to be done is to make sure that Nevis is safe. The premier could indicate, well, in doing your role, we have a more of an issue in a particular area, and so you could emphasize that, if you understand what I'm saying. But it can't be inconsistent. So in my estimation, one of the cards that the premier could play, if he wanted to play, is to say, listen, I have indicated to the police officers, hey, no more harassing people, no more arrest for cannabis. I will focus on panko, focus on ecstasy and them thing there. Separate on them. And something happened inconsistent at that point in time, he could blame labor, and that would be right on time for federal election. Some shots in a labor
Policy. The Prime Minister is the Minister of National Security and therefore the one charged with control over the police. And Samuel Duggins, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, is the Minister charged with agriculture and, as I understand it, the one charged with developing the cannabis industry. The Honorable Samuel Duggins sits in the same cabinet as the Honorable Prime Minister. So how can he be talking about the development of a cannabis?
Everybody does forget Jeffrey, but I am never gonna forget Jeffrey Hanley and the failure that Jeffrey Hanley has been in this aspect. Jeffrey Hanley is the minister responsible for ecclesiastical affairs, and that ministry was somehow given the responsibility of setting up the said licensing regime, which is not in effect. So you can't speak about the failure of cannabis, and this is which part you start to lose my vote now. You're not bringing out all of the issues, but Jeffrey Hanley, who has up to this point never said, I don't even know if Jeffrey Hanley could say cannabis at this particular moment in time, but he has failed in every aspect of his responsibility in this area.
Industry, while the head of cabinet, as Minister of National Security, has the police out there picking up people, arresting people, charging people for the same cannabis. It does not make any sense. And our people are confused, our people feel harassed, and I will go further. And not that I'm trying to be controversial, but the evidence is clear that the levels of enforcement on the island of Nevis for cannabis are far higher than those on St. Kitts. Every time I pick up the list of charges, Nevis, I see an old Rasta man from, I believe he's from the Zion area. Peaceful people, people have not got themselves involved in any type of violent crime or violent activity. I see his face in the paper, charged with cannabis. Number of raids in Nevis. Number of arrests made in Nevis.
Listen, and I think like, Mr. Premier, you're batting again. You're batting again. It's very important. There is a disproportionate policy with regards to how cannabis is policed within St. Kitts and Nevis. I have seen it firsthand. I could even tell you that there are officers who when they are in St. Kitts, they behave in a totally different manner than when they are in Nevis. Even when you're speaking about big events, it is managed in a totally different way. Very civil in St. Kitts. I don't know. And that is not to tell you that people don't have any issues, but I have also seen much more humanity in St. Kitts than in Nevis.
But in the main, the cannabis farmers in St. Kitts are not being similarly raided or arrested. It has led to a lot of conversation out there. Is there a biased approach to enforcement in relation to this cannabis issue? I can tell you that based on some statistics recently shared with me, that the police now have tickets that they can issue for those who continue to break the law by trying to smoke cannabis in public. And I agree with the police 100%. And I agree with the police 100%. You want to smoke, smoke home by you. No need for you to be in public around other people who do not smoke, deciding to smoke. You don't know if people have asthma. You don't know what the situation is. And so some youngsters are out there and abusing it. And I agree with the police to crack down on those youngsters who are smoking in public. But when I recently saw some numbers that since this ticketing issue has come into place, 10 tickets have been issued in Nevis.
I agree with you, Alan. I have been seeking to point out that for years now, the fact that Honorable Jeffrey Hanley has failed in relation to the responsibilities in relation to cannabis. It is a failure of epic proportions. We have never heard the man say anything about it, advance any cause under it. We haven't heard him say anything about Rastafari neither. And for me, Rastafari is letting Jeffrey scared. Jeffrey getting a free pass, and I can't tell you why. You go ahead and be like a and all them things there. But in this regard, you got to perform for me to see what's going on with you. And nah, not for me.
Only one has been issued in St. Kitts. But I challenge any of you. In fact, we could leave here now and take the boat from the ferry terminal in St. Kitts and just walk up 4th Street. Every corner, you're smelling marijuana. So how come no tickets are being issued in St. Kitts? I don't say these things because they give me any joy. I say these.
You have never heard a word from Honorable Jeffrey Hanley in relation to cannabis. I am sure many are not aware that he plays such a pivotal role, and as a matter of fact, it is due to his failure. This is what me work out. Everybody like Jeffrey, and nobody want to talk to Jeffrey hard. And I ain't got no. Jeffrey, election, I get ready to go again, eh? So I ain't got time for you and your shoppiness, yeah. I done with you and that. You either need to give up that, move that on, let them know you ain't in that, or perform. Cause for me, let me see me got this one. Let me see if I could hear this one. This all me.
Good nigga, I'm here to double Hear me good, nigga. I'm here to double down. That shit is a 2-pack of ass. The fuck are you talking about? That shit stinks.
You check? That's what I'm saying. Jeffrey, you will come better. You waiting too long.
These things because it means that our people, because ultimately, members of the press, I am here because people put me here. And they put me here not to look out for myself, but to look out for them. And if people are calling me and saying, Mr. Brantley, this is not fair. Why are we being harassed? Why are we being singled out? Because when we look at the record, it does appear that there is a dual system at work. And I challenge members of the press, check for the last year. Check how many people in Nevis have been charged for ganja and how many people have been charged in Sinkits. There's a vast disparity in the numbers. Check.
If SK only got one ticket and Nevis, if SK only got one ticket and Nevis got 10, that tell you all what you got to know. Why Banky and Jama is being locked up and constitutional rights disrespected? His ministry is responsible from the Rastafari and freedom of conscience aspect of cannabis. Because Banky and Jama na pressure Jeffrey, but this is not Bo Banky and Jama neither, you know. This is in general. That's why I may want to hear no cut on or no special thing. Jeffrey, do your job or leave. Leave. Me no want to hear a long talk. Nobody even know if you could say cannabis. Much less know what cannabis be. Fed up, man. We're in this. It can't be. I don't understand. What constituency in Sinkers Jeffrey represent? I ain't familiar with Jeffrey constituency, you know. Is it a very affluent constituency? Where is it happen? The people and them over in Jeffrey constituency don't blow clouds? Cause I can't understand what's going on with Jeffrey, you know. Anyway, it's time for moving. I need a break out from the premiere. You know you got to consume the premiere in doses. So let me go to Mervin. You understand? Cause what Mervin had to say to Mr. Wickham also triggered the premiere, you know. Premier call people fraudsters and all kind of things. So let me make sure I'm perfect. I could go in front of the mark, but I can't go behind the mark. Moving 26-27. No, too far. Okay, we could start, yeah. We could start here with Mervin. Moving on, Mr. Wickham.
You know, is pretty evident. And I think what really happened with the UPP is that they have not picked winners. You know, they have not been able to land an alternative, credible leader. The current leader, Pringle, nice guy, but he doesn't seem to fill people's eyes as an alternative
he
leader.
doesn't command the respect, though, Peter.
He doesn't.
I believe
and then he doesn't command respect internally, far less.
In the party, and he doesn't command the respect of the country. So we're going to see. What are we going to see happening on April 30th?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm the poll that you referred to, which I personally didn't release it because the polling is the property of the client, and I always encourage clients in the light of landslides or what appears to be a decisive swing in their favor to say as little about it as possible, because frankly, I'm often concerned that the knowledge that there will be that level of swing demotivates people. And I saw and learned an important
Yes.
lesson in 2013 in Barbados. And, I have taken that position in terms of advising my clients, but ultimately they decide what they want to do with the data.
Mr. Wickham, I feel like you give yourself a little bit too much power. Milligrams? I wonder how many milligrams or whatever you want, honey. Tell me. But Mr. Wickham talking about they don't put out the polling data when the data show swings. Basically, showing that you're going to be building some momentum or something or the other, and saying that this will have the effect of not motivating people to come out to the polls. I ain't buying that. I wish we could get more polling data more often. I wish that there were mechanisms whereby this thing could have happened and be more like America, but not putting out your data because you feel like you're gonna affect voters, bruh.
And you would notice that we had poll details that would have shown that Prime Minister Motley would have won all the seats in 2018, 2022, and 2023. And in no instance has Cadres made those polling details available until after the election. And there's a good reason for that. So we're showing a swing based on what Prime Minister Brown has presented of a Cadres poll. There's a swing towards the party. If you have a swing of 5% towards the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, they can clean up all but 2 seats, quite frankly. Barbuda aside, because Barbuda is always an interesting conversation. That's not part of the conversation because Barbuda doesn't respond to the national swing. But certainly on the mainland, they can pick up a few seats extra. And the important thing is that they should be able to hold what they have. And I think that even if they were to hold what they have, which includes seats that they would have acquired from the UPP, that would be enough. If they're able to hold the seat that they acquired from the UPP, which is Anthony Smith's seat, essentially it means that they keep Harold Level out of office. If they cede All Saints and St. Luke, then Jamal Pringle continues to be opposition leader. And I think that is pretty good seats. That would probably be the worst news for Prime Minister Brown because it would mean then that the UPP can do what the NDC did in Grenada and go and look for fresh leadership, But if they're left with Jamal Pringle, I think it would probably bring a smile to Prime Minister Brown's face, quite frankly, because it would mean that he will come up against someone that he has essentially defeated in the past, and that he will be in a better position to hold on to leadership because he'll be part of the parliament.
Yes, but do you see if the ABLP picks up seats, or is it's an overwhelming victory that Brown will stay on? I know he's going to have another term, or do you think that now, after he wins, if the party wins, he will say, you know what, okay, now it's time for that transition?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've tried on a personal level to pick his brain in terms of what were his long-term plans in terms of moving on. And he assures me he has plans to move on. But the question of when or how, I don't know. He's not discussed it with me. I don't know whether he's discussed it with anyone else. But I can't predict or project how he's likely to respond. My sense is that, as you said, he will stay for 5 years. He has no reason to leave, and he's relatively young. I mean, he looks young, and he may want to go for the Ralph Gonzalez record. Yeah. So right now, Ralph Gonzalez has a record which, it's Ralph Gonzalez or Roosevelt Skerritt. There's nobody who has won more consecutive elections than that. He's won 3. If he does this one, it will be 4 consecutive elections, and he may very well want to go for the 5.
Gaston Brown, as we speak, is 59 years old. Okay? So if them, I wonder if Gaston Brown is gonna leave politics at what, 64? 63? Ain't no shot. Gaston, in my mind, got at least 3 more election anybody.
the trifecta is 3, right? What is 5 in baseball terms?
Right.
You live in the United States,
You're
so you're
right.
more familiar
You're
with
right.
this.
You're
Yeah,
right.
but
You're right.
yeah,
Okay. Now let's now get to St. Kitts and Nevis.
yeah,
My favorite
yeah.
discussion, I think this would be. We have an election that is constitutionally due some later next year or whatever the case may be. However, all signs well, it appears, that something is mixing up in the probably later this year for an election in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, I know that you do not like the two elections, these federal elections and the Nevis Island administration elections and all of that, and we're going to get to that. How do you see this playing out on the St. Kitts and on the St. Kitts end with the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party under Prime Minister Drew? Then you have the People's Action Movement with the leader Natasha Gray Brooks, and of course the PLP with Timothy Harris. PAM or PLP, can they win on their own, or do you see the reality where these people have to say, hey, cut the BS, you need to have a coalition in order to defeat the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party? Or do you believe whether or not there is a coalition that the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party will serve a second term in office?
Yeah. St. Kitts is a peculiar political environment, and I've spent a lot of time on the ground there, and I think I understand one of the first controversies I was involved in St. Kitts, Nevis, is that I said that it would take a political earthquake to remove Labour. I strongly still feel that it took a political earthquake to remove Labour, and a political earthquake was what happened when Timothy Harris left, when he joined with the opposition. And then when Team Unity formed an alliance and essentially brought down the Labour Party, that was a political earthquake of phenomenal proportions. And I don't think that even the Team Unity understood that they were essentially an uncharted territory and they had done something amazing. Look, the Labour Party is very well ingrained into the psyche of Kittitians, and it has a strong foothold in terms of the day-to-day operations of that country. It's a very, very difficult organization to beat, in much the same way that the ALP in Antigua is a difficult organization to beat. The PNM in Trinidad and Tobago is a difficult organization to beat. There are some organizations politically in the region that are just like political.
Okay. Let me just kind of fill in some of the gaps here, because once again we have another what individual here. Previously, I would have spoken to you and let you know that because the very nature of a Labour Party mean that the parties throughout the Caribbean generally, some of the first parties represented the workers, and when you're gonna represent the workers, generally this is how you become, as he said, ingrained into the society. Nevis was a different circumstance, because Nevis never had like one crop, so that's why Labour parties never really work in Nevis. But when he talking about how deeply ingrained it is, keep in mind, when last Labour really do things for the workers, I know that they're gonna say they raise minimum wage. Me not talk about that. Me talk about there's other things where you could do to improve workers' life. So think about that. Think about the labor unions in St. Kitts and Nevis. Do you even have a labor union, and does your labor union work for you? Are you seeing the benefits of such? And then you would see that, in my estimation, there's weaknesses in the labor game. But that's just me.
Juggernauts. And the Labour Party is one of them, which is not to say that they will win every election. They can be beaten.
Right.
My challenge is that when Team Unity won the first election and then they won the second election, Team Unity seemed to have thought that they were part of the regular day-to-day exchange in terms of political parties. And then entities within Team Unity seem to have felt, well, we can go it alone, right? The strength of PAM historically was the fact that PAM understood that its participation in government was invariably a result of someone associating themselves with them and keeping them in government. And the fact that, not Timothy Harris, Sean Richards, The fact that Sean Richards appeared to believe that Palm could win an election on his own and that he could become a prime minister on his own was, in my opinion, the beginning of the end of Palm in operations. And this is where.
Well, if that's a fact that Sean Richards thought that he could have been the prime minister, somebody talked Sean Richards into running, into actually mashing up team unity and running with them in an election. So it is very important to understand what taking place with that day.
Natasha Gray Books comes into the case because she seems to have been drinking the same Kool-Aid. I don't understand where these ideas come from, but it's painfully obvious that within Palm now there is a perception that they can go it alone and win. And, my thing is that once there's a fragmented opposition in St. Kitts and Nevis, the traditional environment politically will play out. So Labour has an advantage under normal circumstances. And normal circumstances are that you have a disunited opposition. And that's exactly what is happening. People present the current scenario in St. Kitts as the strong government, forgetting the fact that there's only one seat separating the government and opposition. And even if that seat were to manifest itself, it is entirely possible that the Labour Party will still sit as a minority government, but be able to win everything simply because the opposition is so disunited. So you have a situation now.
Okay. So, and me no know I make Mervin no pushback on this anymore. Me no pushback on it. In my estimation, and me not even need this anymore. But in my estimation, I cannot take Pam seriously as a party and talk about Pam 1 and 2. I do not feel like Natasha think that she gonna be the prime minister without help at this particular moment in time. And the reason I say that is Pam does not have a full field of candidates. So Pam is definitely in coalition mode. Pam is ready to make a deal. Pam just want to know who they're going to be making the deal with. And they don't want it to be Timothy Harris. But if there's any kind of minority government in the first instance, that no one lasts. We're getting back to the polls quick.
Where you have 3 different parties on opposition benches and they're sitting together. And the one that's leading the opposition is one that's not even a candidate for leadership at the federal level, because it's
Okay. This is why that comment right there, so is the comment that get Mervin and Mr. Wickham in trouble. This is why y'all are fraudsters. Talking about the leader of the opposition can be the prime minister. You don't talk so to my God. The premier could be anything he wanna be. You ain't know that? So when you're gonna talk about the leader of the opposition can't get you, then that's not correct. No, I understand what Mr. Wickham is trying to say. And I'm with him to an extent. There is always the card that could be played from since 1993. I don't want to support you. I want you to support me. Let me be the prime minister. No, that is not going to be possible. I do not care if the constitution does not speak specifically to this. There's no way you could be prime minister and premier. But whoever it is the deal is made with would have the opportunity to say, make me the prime minister from a Nevis party. That's the only way we could get you. I think that's what he's overall trying to say.
Nevis party. So it's kind of, to me, politically.
But don't tell me maybe me just... Anyway, people, what I was saying just now, in case I was mute, is that he's saying that the goat, the goat politician in Nevis can be the prime minister, and you could never talk to Mark Brownlee. So that them word there, that's the beginning of where he started to get some word. Because you can't say Mark Brownlee can't be the prime minister. You must always say that he could be the prime minister.
It's a bit crazy, and I would say that the Team Unity, PAM and PLP are essentially handing a government back to Dr. Drew. In a
Do
situation
you
where he
think it
would
has to
normally be
do
under
with that?
pressure.
Well, of course, I believe it's a matter of trust between the political parties. So how do they overcome that? Because Pam, for sure, I can tell you, they do not trust Timothy Harris, and Timothy
No.
Harris may very well have misgivings about Pam. So what do they do? I mean, is it that they just stay there and say, you know what, let's lose the election, we're not going to do this, right, or
Precisely.
whatever, or
And that was my argument when the three members of PAM, certainly the ones that I engaged with, indicated an interest and a distrust for Timothy Harris, and an indication that they were not going back into that arrangement with them. You've obviously made a decision that you prefer being in opposition. I mean, and the math is very simple. You either want to do a deal with the devil, or alternatively, you want to sit in opposition. And I would
The thing, once again, that I am not understanding from Mr. Wicker is that in both instances of Team Unity, Timothy Harris did not ultimately need to be a part of Team Unity. You know? Timothy Harris was granted the honor. He was bestowed as the leader, but he wasn't required in any instance. And so I think that was the logic behind Pam and CCM running a joint campaign last time. And the fundamentals, at least from the CCM perspective, CCM get issue, you know? Is Pam really failed the coalition in that aspect? So Pam, if Pam was to take a strategic long view of the situation and to say, we're not going to challenge Labour, our PLP and our front, and they're going to just aim to get enough, which would be 4 or 3, then the possibility is more realistic that you don't need Timothy Harris as much, because me not see Tim again more than one seat. Tim is not a real politician to me, you know. And when me say a real politician, me not feel like Tim got real party. Tim himself is a real politician, and he got a base in his constituency, but like the party itself, nah. And all of them left, nah.
think that being in opposition is far worse. But if it is a place that they enjoy being, then knock yourself out. And in the case of Natasha Gray Book, she's not even in parliament. So if you enjoy your non-parliamentary status as leader of PAM, of a party that don't have a seat, or has a single seat in parliament and is not yours, then carry on smartly. But if you really want to be part of it, then you're gonna have to look. I've seen Pat Basio Pandey in Trinidad and Tobago jump into and out of bed with Ian R. Robinson twice, you know, because he was interested in being in government. No, my thing is that he was burned once, but he went back. And you went back because you wanted to have a relationship with him, because you wanted to get into the government. You know, it's always fascinates me that on a personal level, so many of us, not myself included, because I'm happily married, are in marriages of convenience, where you marry somebody because you want something. My thing is that if it's going to happen at the personal level, at the political level, it should. And I see coalitions in Europe functioning quite well. I've seen the Liberals get into bed with the Conservatives in the United Kingdom. They got into bed with Labour in the past. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But in the final analysis, your political marriage has to be because you decide that you want something and there's a greater good. I think if Natasha Gray Brooks can get into bed politically with Timothy Harris and Sean Richards for that matter, and Mark Brantley for that matter, or whoever else, it has to be a situation where they say, look, we are going to unite around a greater good. I think that Timothy Harris gets it, and I think that he's ready to do business, but I am convinced that Natasha Gray Brooks doesn't get it because she seems to feel that she can do this on her own. And it's ironic because...
Is it her, or do you think it's her, or do you think it's the PAM folks who probably are saying, no, we're not going there?
But who are the PAM folks? I struggle. I speak to a few of the PAM folks,
veterans,
and they...
rather.
I speak to a few of the PAM folks, the ones that were willing to speak to me, because I'm not exactly popular with PAM. And a lot of them have said to me that, they think the logic that I've expressed makes perfect sense. And, a lot of them are saying that this thing isn't going anywhere because fundamentally, it is painfully obvious that she can't be the next prime minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. So my question is, who is whispering in her ear and telling her, you can do this thing? And leaders has to understand that you need to be able to lead from in front. And leadership means that you often have to convince yourself of things that are popular and unpopular. So there's a level of political immaturity, I think, that is playing out. And we are close to an election now. I didn't hear the press conference today from Prime Minister Drew.
Well,
but,
he just what he basically did was give announcements of relief because of what's happening in the world and gas prices and increase and all of that. So he just basically different packages, and so I believe though it was a pre-election speech. Though it was very much a pre-election.
And
But
if he has any sense, he will call an election.
Who do you think should lead?
Sorry?
And that is exactly what I believe is happening. Would happen. Who do you think, though, should lead? Does it matter, though, who leads the coalition? Because remember, Timothy Harris, he would have had 2 terms as promised, and why they broke up because of whatever else. But does it matter who leads a coalition if there is a coalition?
It matters, and I don't see why any other name would be considered other than Timothy Harris.
Okay.
I can't think.
This again is where me get confused, right? Me now say Peter Wickham hasn't been around Timothy Harris and see how he walk and say, bye. Yeah, the only name he could see at Timothy Harris. But like if you know think it's an like even Nevis people, I don't feel like we're going for that. I feel like it's possible you can make a deal, and if you get it, and in order to get in, you might got to make a deal with him, but it would never be with Tim being sworn in as the prime minister. Tim could just be a minister, and that's it, with the 1 seat. He not even talk about the fact that it was a mistake to give him prime ministership with 1 seat. It's unprecedented, and it should never be repeated, in my estimation.
I mean, and in terms of the polling that I would have done in the past, when people talk leadership in St. Kitts and Nevis, a couple of names come up, and one of them is Timothy Harris's. People don't talk about Sean Richards as a potential leader. I've never heard anybody mention Natasha Gray Brooks as a potential leader. Azar Gums is a potential leader. I've never heard people talking about even Mark Brantley as a leader of the Federation. But they talk about Harris, they talk about Drew, they talk about Denzel Douglas. And against that background,
On a certain level, right? And we must understand this is a man who did not see Deacon Mitchell and the potential that he had in Grenada as well. So, feel like, older conservative dude, he said in his ways, and he just want to keep this thing with names what he know. Yeah, the man screw up his face when he say, boy, Azad, boy, you get your far, boy.
in a situation where you don't have a lot of time, I would think that it would make perfect sense to put the person leading it as the person who was, well known, and people seem to have a lot of confidence in his ability to lead. The challenge that Timothy Harris has always had is that people think that Timothy Harris is greedy, politically greedy, and I have always said in his defense, both in his presence and behind his back, that political greed is not anything to be ashamed of. Everybody who is a politician wants to be a leader.
What is
I've
your
never met a
definition of
politician that didn't
political
want to
greed?
be a leader.
What is your
Once again, this man don't get singles and Nevis if he not about. But go ahead and be politically greedy. Go ahead. Everybody could deal with that. That's lovely indeed. What? Bruh. And then, well, I guess he gonna describe it. No, I gonna hear.
definition of political greed, Peter?
But that he wants to be a leader too much. This is what people seem to think. When he
Do you
was
think
kicked
that's
out
the
of the
only?
Labour
Do you
Party,
think do you think that's the only when it comes to greed, that's what they talk about with Timothy Harris, that he just wants to be leader?
generally speaking, that's what it is. I have heard.
Okay.
No. Ginger, you need to chill, right? Everybody come home. There you go. Relax, okay? All right. Ain't nobody concerned with the fact that Timothy want to be too much of a leader. What stupid is he talking about, boy? That ain't nothing but greedy. He talking about where he gonna come to it. But we talking about when you in and it's only a set of people getting fat. That's what we talking about when we talking about greedy, and we can't take on any kind of thing there. We don't experience Tim 1.0. I've been one experience Tim by Hungry Belly.
Heard suggestions of the fact that Timothy Harris has too many of his family members involved in the political life of St. Kitts and Nevis. And when I say that, I smile because St. Kitts is a microstate, is one of the smallest populations in the world. And if I remember correctly, the gentleman has 20-something siblings. Father had an almighty appetite. My sense is that when you have a family that large, and most of them are professionals, it is invariably likely that people will rise to particular levels, regardless of who your brother is. And a lot of them got there on their own before he became prime minister. So things like that I usually dismiss because I think that there are peculiar circumstances. And in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis, with a state that small, invariably you're going to be somebody's relative, and I don't see that is a particular issue. But yeah, most of these stuff people have complained about is this greed, the greed for power, the greed to be prime minister. And I'm saying that when I hear, for example, someone like Denzel Douglas criticizing the fact that he wanted to lead, I find it fascinating. Denzel Douglas was prime minister for 20 years. Is it not reasonable that in that time somebody else should want to be prime minister too? I can't give him wrong. So in the same way that Dr. Douglas had a right to want to be prime minister for 20 years, I think that somebody else should want to be prime minister for 5 or 6 or 10, maybe even. I don't see that as particularly unreasonable.
So you see Labour winning again without a coalition? Well, yes.
I would like to hold my predictions for now because I don't have poll data that's up to date. But my sense is that just reading the tea leaves the way they are, without a coalition, it is going to be far more likely that you end up with another Labour government.
Okay. Now, Nevis, the last election was in 2022, where the CCM, they lost one seat under Janice Daniel Hodge. After 30 years, CCM holding on to that particular seat, Janice Daniel Hodge, leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, she came in and she shocked the island by winning a veteran, Alexis Jeffers, there, and took away that seat from the CCM. They have lost some ground there. And now, but what are you seeing, or what do you think will happen in the next election? And especially in Nevis, that is due next year as well, but we never know what's going to happen, because what I believe is going to happen, depending on what happens in the federal elections in St. Kitts and Nevis this year, then CCM may come, the Honorable Mark Brantley may call the local right after, depending on the outcome. Now, so what do you see happening in Nevis, especially, Peter, with this Destiny project that so many people, this Destiny Dubai 6 square mile project that so many people oppose? Now, what do you see can happen or potentially happen there in Nevis for the local election?
It's a mixed bag, and I agree with you that a lot's going to be dependent on what happens in the interim when certainly Premier Brantley watches the outcome of the national election and decides what he can do to either enhance his power or to essentially to bring himself back to power.
Mm-hmm.
But let me start with that whole question first. There clearly is a swing against the CCM. I think it was clear in the last election that there was a swing against the CCM and that the NRP is on the ascendance. And certainly the Hodge success says a lot about what is likely to be happening in terms of where things are going. My personal feeling is that the feeling on the ground is clearly moving in a direction that says that there should be an NRP victory in the next election. The challenge I have with Nevis is the ability of the CCM to mobilize overseas voters. And you would remember, Mark, that I have been a critic, long-standing critic of overseas voters because, I go into St. Kitts and I go into Nevis and I poll, and you get one result, and you will have an election that tells you something completely different because you can't poll the people that live in the BVI, that live in Turks and Caicos, and that live all around, and that can come into Nevis by vote legitimately and vote. I'm also aware of the fact that you have one of the few
I don't like this. When he spoke earlier, we didn't listen to this part. He spoke a little bit about the methodology, and he would have told you, you only need a sip of your tea. You know what the flavor be. But then now he's saying that the variability of the voters and the ability of CCM to bring it in. How come we not hear that when it comes to the Labour part? If it's such a big factor.
electoral systems in the Caribbean that legitimately provides for people who are not resident locally to come home and vote. And there are a lot of conversations about whether that should have been the case. In full disclosure, I was involved in the reform process that made it possible. I personally have never liked it, but my thing is that if the people of a country decide that that's what they want to go with, then we have to respect their right to determine. That would make it very, very difficult for the NRP to win an election unless the NRP either moves mountains on a local level where they're able to convince
they find the
nations in
resources.
large numbers to move, or alternatively, they find the resources to get themselves to the other islands and campaign those people to come home and vote for them or to bring them home to vote for them. And I think that the CCM has the upper hand where that is concerned. And that to me is a huge deciding factor of what happens in the future. The importance of destiny, I would say, is similar to the importance of the SIDF in the case of the federal government some time ago. Destiny has the capacity by volume, by the sheer volume of money involved to change the fortunes of Nevis, not only economically, but also politically, because it can fund a lot of this mobilization
Yes.
of people in a real and tangible way. And I guess it is that reason why Premier Brantley is anxious to get it moving. It will bring a lot of money into Nevis. It will bring a lot of money into, well, one could argue, the mobilization politically. And he wants to get moving. The problem is that people don't like it, and I personally don't think it can happen because it has created so much negatives. The investors are probably going to get tired waiting and walk away. And if that happens, it leaves him in an unfortunate situation. I think I've
So
covered
no.
all the bases where Nevis are concerned. I don't know. Have I left out
Yes.
anything? So that's
No, you're not.
yeah.
If it is the ground, basically it's an NRP victory. If it's
Yeah.
in the air, if NRP doesn't find the money to bring the people in, then it's a CCN's victory. So then
That's
that's
pretty much how I'm seeing
basically,
it.
yes, that's basically show that what the NRP has to do and they must do in order to win. And if they do not win, then they'll be out of office for. It's been a while, Peter, from since
Yeah.
2013.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. And I mean, I think I remember the last election that they won. They won it on the backs of a vote that they brought in as well.
Yes.
So they were able to identify resources. Premier Parry identify considerable resources to bring people home to vote. Yeah, it's a hell of a thing because you're back in a situation where either you do that again, or alternatively you remain. No, and I continue to be concerned about a situation in which your leadership is determined from outside. You know, that is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Peter Wickham, I want to thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We have covered the ground, and thank you. You're an exception because I normally have folks in the studio, but I had to do this, and now that I have done
The Destiny Project, I regret to inform that we still have not had any movement at the federal government level. About a week ago, we got a letter from the Cabinet Secretary to say that the project had been referred to some committee that they had put in place in St. Kitts. That is the extent of what we know.
This is not good enough. You can't say to some committee. The premier kind of peace. Listen, panel levels, the premier political career could be on the line. Huh? And if that's the case, he said he got to know what's taking place with the committee. Now, it can't be some kind of committee. So, me not really know what's going on with the big boss at this moment in time. I guess this was the beginning of the frustration leading to what happened today.
We have not yet had from the federal government an answer whether positive or negative. And it appears as if this committee now would have to deliberate. I don't know about this committee. I was certainly not, the committee was not discussed with me in terms of any consultation on it. I'm not aware of any Nevis involvement in that committee, save and except, I believe, the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society and the Nevis Hotel Association, I gather, were asked to submit members to that committee. But beyond that, truly, we are in a waiting pattern. I'm not sure why. The federal government clearly is only concerned with any constitutional aspects of this development. There is nothing else that the federal government has to contend with. So I'm not quite sure what the committee is going to advise on, or why this entire project has to go to a St. Kitts committee. The project is not a St. Kitts project. But that is the option that the federal government, in their wisdom,
Initially, once again, I spoke about this and I said, from the start, we don't got to send this thing and sink it, and it's going to be a problem. And the premier was like, and he keep on saying, it's a Nevis thing, it's a Nevis thing. Well, if it's a Nevis thing, why you had to send it SK for why? Since it's a Nevis thing, why you had to send it SK? No, he got some SK in there, and I tried to tell you about the SK part there to tell him, man, no, you take over that there. Don't let it be a situation where they even feel like they could control the Nevis aspect. And I want everybody to understand this gonna be a preview for geothermal. Cause if you don't feel like they think they're gonna be in control of that there, you know, those get people
has chosen, and we in Nevis continue to wait. I can tell you that the developers are growing very frustrated because they're anxious to proceed. They want to proceed. They have real estate options that they want to close on and pay people their money. They want to start the necessary work. I can tell you that in my engagement with our young people,
very important. You hear what he said? He could tell you that the real estate people are frustrated. He could tell you he know what's going on. Listen, it's very important.
we have people who have heavy equipment, who are anxious to get going. They know that there's going to be years and years of work available. I have people calling even from St. Kitts, trying to position themselves to see how they could get in on a project of this magnitude. So we continue to wait. While we continue to wait on the Destiny project to be approved and to start the project, you ask, when do these contracts expire? I really don't know. I'm not involved in the Destiny project in terms of knowing when the individual contracts with landowners would expire. But what they did indicate is that those contracts are coming up in terms of the expiry date. So I'm not sure what's going to happen when that happens, because clearly you can't expect that they're going to finalize. They pay deposits and all.
Imagine you could tell me about the frustration and all them thing there. But do I know the dates when no, they didn't tell me nothing about the date. And the frustration doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the dates are coming up quick and they're going to pay out my money and renegotiate. Is totally independent frustration from that. Okay.
all these lands, finalize the purchase without them knowing whether or not their project is going to be approved by the federal cabinet. So we'll have to wait and see, as we are all waiting to see what happens. You say you've been in court for the past few weeks, lawsuits against the NIA. What is the government doing to limit cases? The short answer is there's nothing the government can do to limit cases. Anybody who feels they have a grievance can bring a lawsuit. That is the system that we have. I'm only aware of one lawsuit against the NIA that involves me. No, forgive me, I'm aware of two that involve my ministries. I can't comment because, of course, there are active matters before the High Court, but I don't think either has any merit. Let me just say that. I'm not getting into the details, but there's a lot of chatter and a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, it's a court of law. And a court of law must apply the law, and it must apply the facts, and we will see how that goes. But I don't know that there's anything the government can do to prevent people from suing the government. Anybody who has a grievance has a right to take action if they're so minded. We have employed for one of the matters Tanania Small Davis, who's a King's Counsel from Jamaica, renowned legal luminary, has sat on the court as well as a judge, and has appeared in matters in the BVI in Anguilla, in Antigua, and now here in Nevis. You said what cost? The short answer is I'm not privy to that. That would have been a matter.
This is a matter which he just said he directly involved in and he not board. We are paying out money for a King's Counsel who he could tell you has served on the High Court and has appeared in all these different jurisdictions. How much are we paying him? I can't tell you. And you know why I can't tell you? Because I'm not the Minister of Finance.
Between the King's Counsel and our legal department, and I can't therefore answer that particular question. But
Oh yeah, that's a legal issue. It's not a federal issue, you know. This not got nothing to do with Nevis, really, you know. Although I mean them so you know really got nothing to do with Nevis, although even though a taxpayer's money is not like all of your money. So that don't count.
I can confirm that we hired her to deal with one specific matter. Any other questions for me? Mr. Huey, thank you very much. The Prime Minister is absolutely correct that this particular project has certain federal aspects to it that he is responsible for. Primary among them is, of course, to ensure.
Well, look here. Look, he's escaping again. He got certain federal aspects to it. So we had to say, oh, it's not a Nevis thing. Okay, all right. I guess it's federal now.
Sure that any project and what is proposed accords with the Constitution. That's why the Attorney General is there. But I will tell you that those matters are discrete. And frankly, if I were to say that there are 10 issues, those matters would probably be just 2 of the issues. And so that is why I have been concerned at the length of time.
Okay, just let me clear up something for this man here, so. Even though there might be 2 issues, if it involve the Constitution, them they are the 2 most important issues. All the rest of them could hold on. If the Constitution is possibly being breached, sir, the thing that you have sworn yourself to defend the Constitution of St. Christopher Davis, then there's not 2 that is more important than the one. This is the supreme law of the land. You can't get it.
Time that it is taking. Because, in my opinion, this could be a simple matter of seeking guidance. If you had a question of constitutional propriety about any aspect, then you seek an opinion and you get that opinion and you're guided accordingly.
This was the same person who sought an opinion about whether he could fire the Prime Minister. He got an opinion that he could fire the Prime Minister, and he got fired. And I could have given the same advice for free.
the heavy lifting on this project had to be done in Nevis, because that is where the project is going to happen. So although the economic impact will cascade into St. Kitts, the truth of the matter is that we expect as a Nevis project that much of what we're going to deal with, housing, economic impact, residents, etc., is on Nevis. And the NIA, that is why the NIA has such extensive consultations with stakeholder groups and with the general public on the matter until we were satisfied. And so this is why I'm not understanding, because the NIA would have been dealing with this matter for several months last year, the latter half of last year. And we sent it to the federal government, to the Attorney General on the 23rd of December, as I've indicated. The government then responded in late January to say they wanted it sent by the Cabinet Secretary. When it was sent in the 23rd of December, it was sent by the legal advisor to the Attorney General. So he wanted it, they preferred for it to be sent from the Cabinet Secretary Nevis to the Cabinet Secretary St. Kitts. So when you hear St. Kitts say that they received it on the 29th of January, it's really the second sending. They're acknowledging that because officially they said that is when they received it from the Cabinet Secretary. I'm not quarreling with that, that's fine. I'm simply saying that even if you count from then, 29th of January, March has gone by, February has gone by, I'm sorry, March has gone by, we're now into April. And I'm understanding that you're now saying you're referring the matter to a committee. In fact, I am not even sure whether this committee has already been consecrated. So I know a committee has been invited, but I don't know if the committee has in fact been set up. So you could...
I want my premier pan Higgy. I want my premier got spice all over SA. And anything what Dr. Joe doing, he's supposed to know about it. Why are you telling me? But this is the game. And Dr. Joe, by the way, he ain't supposed to feel insulted by what I'm saying to him. Because if you're the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, you're also supposed to get people in Nevis laying what's going on with Nevis. That's how this thing go. I trading in information, you know? And that's why you people in the news, man, y'all golden, man. I got equity. I go everywhere. I see everything. I talk to everybody. No, me not muted right now. Maybe I've been muted before. But not right
They'll be
now.
looking at 4, 5, 6 months of delay. And the question is, why? Because the issues are fairly straightforward issues that they have to resolve. And I can say that two of the issues was the system for resolution of disputes within the zone. And my understanding is that has been resolved already. And there was a second issue about having
How could you not know if the committee, however, is together, but you could still tell me at the same point in time that all of the things then don't get resolved? You was trying to rush the brush, and it looked like you just get that.
code of a legal code within the zone. And that issue, I know that several attempts have been made to resolve that issue. So, other than that, Commissioner of Police continues to have jurisdiction, the DPP continues to have jurisdiction, the head of immigration continues to have jurisdiction. So I'm not, again, understanding why this lengthy delay. But the Prime Minister is being guided, and so it's a matter for him ultimately. I have to respect the fact that he is the Prime Minister and he would do matters as he sees fit. But in my opinion, the NIA did what was necessary in terms of what I'm calling the heavy lifting on this project, the consultations and all of that. And the matters for St. Kitts to consider are quite minor in terms of just the number of issues that would arise there. Amendments to the SSE legislation, I too have heard that there's some contemplation, but I'm not quite sure, Mr. Huey, how any amendments in the future are going to impact the project that's submitted now. You know, it's like if the law says that for a driver's license, Mr. Huey will pay $200. And Mr. Huey applies for his driver's license under that law and submits his $200. And is told to wait because the law might be amended. So if they amend the law in 3 months' time and say the charge is now $400, are they going to come back to you and say, you now must pay $400? That raises some legal issues because you would have applied for an SSC under the existing legislation as it was, not as it is or maybe come, but as it was. So I'm not even sure what the amendments to the legislation are going to do in relation to this particular project. Future projects, no doubt, but this project has already been submitted. You mentioned it's a Rest Haven property that you're talking about, and it's ironic that you mentioned that because I had a meeting just last week, forgive me, with the former owners, the people from whom the land was taken, and the short answer is yes.
Do you think that there's some ulterior motive to prevent Nevis from making this developmental leap forward and being the first to have this in the Federation?
Ms. Hewlett, I don't know, and I would not wish to speculate. I think that we would have to just give it time, and as little time, I'm hopeful that we can get this over the line, because these investors have already messaged that they can't hang around indefinitely.
Okay. Well, I hear what going on. That's a song. I like how we end it half there. I feel like we will hear shortly that it is not just that it is not just that this thing was slowed down, but I think that because he just said, I do not wish to speculate. The speculation is gonna turn to certainty in just a matter of months. One of the things when I started off and I tell you we're gonna watch this year, we're gonna see the deterioration of the relationship. It's just and I'm saying so as natural politics, but even though I saw some attempts to hold on because of the importance of destiny, I feel like we're gonna see the deterioration of the relationship. Good evening to everybody. I hope everybody is well once again. Tomorrow is gonna be the topics they got on Dwyer Astafan. So you're gonna be hearing from Mr. Astafan tomorrow. Should be interesting. Friday. No, I don't know who there is Friday, but Friday is everything agriculture. Regardless of what you're gonna see, yes, and I'm back here again on Friday. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For anybody who wanna get in touch to do anything promotional, they wanna sponsor a show, wanna sponsor a segment, anything of that nature, wanna work with us to get coverage of your event, reach out to Real Entertainment Network at any time, 24 hours a day. Somebody's gonna get back to you. And all the best. I will see y'all again. And next time is gonna be in May. You know, it's Star Wars time. Yeah, May the 4th. So next week we're gonna be Star Wars out. You better believe that. So everybody have a good evening. And I'm gonna see you next week. Bless up yourself. Let me see.
Find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you on tour. Them no want you get more. So get more, show them. You not afraid them. Go and load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it King Kong. Every song I write, hit song. Every song I write, hit song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see, what a sight to see. What a colossal, working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on this right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one to see you fly.